You smell like parrot water!
Heads from this area at once. The black-toothed brawlers love hardening their knuckles in our hands. Losing their teeth, Captain Raoul is going to want you. If you get an invitation, this job will be easy. But watch closely. 3 of the most feared pirate captains all at once. Tough. Your decision is It's your cue, landlubbers.
Ouch! Why'd you poke me? Oh, wake up, Woden! We're on!
Come on, say the things! Say the things!
Ouch! Okay. Gather round for a show of unbridled ferocity. Coming to you from parts unknown. The mysterious, the dangerous, the slightly unkempt, the band of Buccaneers! And entering the ring we have the amazing, the incredible, the magnificent, the... Really? Is it greased up pig? I'm beginning to think this is not a professional setup. Now, well, grab the pig and you... Wow, look at that! We caught a pig. Maybe we should move on to a more threatening challenge. From this suicide unreal comes a Tortolan brigand who makes it his duty to totally hurt you. He is the dynamo of defense, the sergeant of shell shock, the hellion in a half shell, Ludwig!
Kathleen, thanks for hanging out.
I do my best trying to make sense. Baby, you're my past and future tense. When I'm lost on the open sea, you're the wave that will carry me. Now you see, it feels like I'm running backwards all the time.
So Kathleen, I tried this thing where I was spending a lot of time organizing my overlays. I set up a bunch of overlays, and what I was trying to do is to get them to connect to each other or scroll. And I was having a hard time setting it up because what I was doing is I was inputting one overlay and then inputting the exact same overlay but changing the text. And then I was running a shortcut so that one would trigger the next one. And then it would be two inputs running. But then I went and I found an API for Google Sheets. And then I just created these little tabs. And then what I do then is I reference the Google Sheets in vMix. And then what it does is it lets me scroll through the data points. And then I just say auto scroll through every 5 seconds, change the input. So here's one. Well, maybe not that one. Let me try this one. There we go. So then I have the data points scroll through, and that's what lets me have only, I'm going to go back to me. It lets me only have one input for the overlay, but then I'm able to then hot swap what's underneath it. And then for fun, I tried this streaming countdown one, and these are just default presets that come with vMix. But what I did is I had it pick a time in the future and then count down. Here's one that I did where, actually I'll go to this. I want to show you, can I zoom in? How do you zoom in on Google Sheets? Zoom. Can I explore? Is there a plus button? Anyway, okay, so here's, I'll show you this one. I might just have to zoom on vMix. Oh wait, no, here's one. So go to 200%. So here I have platform, and then the next column I have is the URL, and then what I have it say is streaming to Facebook, streaming to Twitch, Mixer, and then also find me on Twitter. And then I'll put another one here. I'll say hello, and the next one I'll put Kathleen. And then what happens then is in the overlay for, I picked a scoreboard. If you go to the GT ones, these are the stock ones. I didn't pay for the upgrade. I'm still running the original, the default one that comes from, the one that comes with plain Jane vMix HD. But so here's the columns. So I got one for platform, one for URL, And then I go into... I'll bring this in. So here... Oh, it stopped it. No, don't stop. Here. So there... Briefly it was on there. Hello, Kathleen. And so I have it cycle between these. So they're streaming to Twitch, streaming to Mixer. Can I just have it be... So there's hello, Kathleen. And then to do this, I went to... You gotta right click on your overlay, and then it brings you to, and then here you can actually see it cycle between the two. So it's got hello, streaming to Facebook, the next one will be streaming to Twitch, streaming to Mixer. It's this cycling through. Oh, and the next one will be hello, find me on Twitter, and then hello, and the next one is Kathleen. And then to do this, I click on the data set, and then I had to connect Google Sheets to vMix. That took me a minute, but you know when you go to, I'll go back to this one. You know when you go to and Google Sheets, when you go to share a document, you can share the document and it gives you like this little URL. It gives you like this little URL. It's a super long URL, but you copy and you paste it into vMix. Not as a web source, but as a data source. And then there's another thing it asks you for. It asks you for like a Google API. Which, you know, you can just Google it and it will tell you how to get it. And then what that does is it lets you pull that in. It's made things a lot easier in my mind because I'm not running as many inputs on vMix. I wanted to cut down on my inputs. Hold on. Oh, cool. You saw it already. One thing I still have a hard time figuring out is this, like this chat function with Restream. Doesn't make sense. Like there's a way you can bring your chat on the screen, but I don't want to do that. Another thing I'm trying to figure out is this whole Streamlabs integration. Streamlabs lets me, when an event happens, Streamlabs puts that into the overlay. Which, not that it's the end of the world, but it makes sense why to have it. But the problem with me is it's such a resource hog. My usage goes up. My processor. So I try and find ways to cut that down. I mean, if I could remove Streamlabs entirely, that'd be nice, but there's just so many cool things it can do. Sure, that'd be certainly... Only dangerous troll names. I know. It's not usually a huge issue, but trolls are out there. If you give them a room to grow, they'll fill that gap. Trolls are trolls. Statistically speaking, if you give a troll an inch, they'll take a mile. Okay, in today's group coaching tech call, there were several people struggling with the Restream relay chat. It didn't work for me the first time. I was trying to tell Petra that when she was out doing her IRL stream. I think it's so cool we're all doing streaming in our own unique way. Petra's really pushing the envelope with her backpack. The live view solo. I'm nowhere near that level. But I like that. Just using the Restream and combining that with live view. I never would have thought of that. What I found interesting though was the first time I logged in with Restream and connected all the things. When I first tried to stream, none of the chat functions worked. And what I mean is people could chat, but I had to go to each different thing for me to be able to go and see the chat. But then the second time I went to go chat, or I went to stream, like I went for lunch and came back later. The second time I went to go stream, the bots then did work, and the bots were communicating back and forth. So somebody posted on, I think it was on Facebook, and then had somebody on Twitch. And then the bot, and then when I linked that up to vMix, vMix could see everything. Well, not everything, but vMix would pull in, because vMix doesn't work natively with Mixer. But if I can get the bot to work first, and then get that to feed the chat to vMix, I can pull in chat from the bot into vMix. And what I'm trying to do then is I'm trying to figure out how I can connect all these dots with the lowest amount of resources. I mean, so far it's fun. It's exciting. It's a challenge because it's a new layer of complexity, but still, if stuff adds up quick. Just being a female brings the trolls out of the woodwork. That's how Dave and Larry are streaming the podcast, recording live from the park. That is pretty awesome. What I don't know is are they sending, because they need this, the live view solo will send the signal, but you also need something to capture the signal. And that's where I begin to wonder, like, do they just stop and run vMix at home? Like, is Philip doing the switching like 24/7? Probably not. Then I began to wonder, I'll bet you they're running some sort of a server just doing nothing but catching the signal. And I think it's one thing to have live view solo, it's a whole other thing to have a service. Because live view solos, those are where the live view solo is where you plug in your own cell phone chips, like your data chips for signal, and then it bonds the signal together. But then there's like other live views which are dedicated signal outputters but they're not using solo, but they're using like some other, I think it's proprietary signals with live view. And I think that's the subscription service. I'm not 100% sure. I'm barely scratching the surface of this live view stuff. Tech puzzles are fun. Yes, they're using the service. I think Petra uses it too. I think Petra's ahead of the curve there. Petra's really pushing the bubble there. It's awesome though. Live view is way out of my price range. Mine too. I'm nowhere near that. Maybe one day, but that day's not today, or tomorrow, or the day after that. What I am having fun with though is, because I went and I looked at what is it that I want my show to do, and then what do I need it to do? And that was a hard question to sit down and to look at, because I was like, I know I want to do all these things, but then I started rebuilding it, starting from scratch. Okay, what if I do this? I don't need this. And it's fun. It's exciting. It's a challenge, but it's holy cow. It's supposed to snow on Saturday. What day is it today? It's Tuesday. Holy cow. Wednesday. So tomorrow's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. In 4 days it's gonna snow? That's not cool. Let's turn the playlist off. Agreed. Want versus need is always hard. I know, right? Snow, exactly. It's like 16 degrees out right now. Wait, no, it's only 10. But it was a high of 16 Celsius. This is crazy. Oh yeah, one other thing I was playing with today was using the Stream Deck and then trying to get the triggers and the activators to work. I programmed the preloaded comments. Actually, I think I can show you. Okay, let me take this down. So I brought in the Stream Deck, and I rewatched the VMix Fun Time live show and Tim's helpful his tips. It's pretty amazing what they can do. I set this button up in the corner to one button to touch to start the stream, but then I have it change color too. Like when it's active. Things I would normally think of to do with lights or microphones, but then I set up the whole interface to change colors when it's active, so that when I look at it, when I look at the Stream Deck, I see that I haven't done something. Like I see I haven't gone live. I can see I need to press this one button, and I want to make it as simple as possible. But in trying to make it as simple as possible, I think I ended up making it complicated. I don't know if that makes sense. It's crazy. It's fun. Triggers are super handy. what I was thinking about doing was, I was wondering if I could set the same trigger, like the same key, to run more than one shortcut. Not like a sequential shortcuts, but then turn this to turn the microphone on. The same button press would then also start the live stream, and then start the playlist. Because then in the playlist, I'll show you. In the playlist, there's all my presets, but I only have two different inputs, and then I have them cycle between a certain time. So if I loop that, and then what I do is on the looping, I have the cascade of overlays that just cycle through themselves, the ones that you've seen already. I'm having fun. Yes, you can do both of the things at once. Okay, that's good. What I couldn't do was I couldn't put a condition on, or I couldn't put in vMix, in the activators, there was only one condition you could look at, like if this input is active, turn the button to this color. But I couldn't have it say like, unless you're live, and like I couldn't connect the two. It was only like one input. If one specific input was active, then do this button green. And then when you press the button, turn the button red. And then when that input is off screen, turn it green. And then press the button to make it go red again. And then when it goes red, bring it back into live. There's this whole craziness that's there, because I'm tossing between using playlists with timers on them, or like just removing the timers altogether and then just manually switching. I like the idea of manually switching, but I know myself, and I know I like to talk, and then I get off topic, and then pretty soon I forget to push the button entirely. So if I never press the button, then I'm never gonna, well, not that I never will, it's just a little bit harder to manage. Self-manage? I don't know. I mean, I like that some of you guys have hosts or co-hosts, and I like that you play off of each other. Being a solo streamer, there's a little bit more manual work. I mean, the same amount of work we all got to do. The same challenges we all got to face. I think I've got it. Okay, let's see. Let's go back to this. Yes, I do both. And each has its own challenges. Oh, you did the X keys. Did you get the one with the T-bar? The fading T-bar? That's my one thing that I look at, and I'm like, that would have been so cool. Because it's a physical thing you can just pull down, and you know when you pull this down, this thing will happen. I think I would do that to like kill the show, or to kick it in gear, turn up the switches. I think X keys. I look back and I'm like, that would have been an excellent purchase to make a year ago, 2 years ago. I mean, I like the Stream Deck. I do. It just requires way more hands-on thinking that I didn't plan on. I have to run the software in the background too for the Stream Deck, and then I don't imagine it takes up that much resources, but no, not the T-bar one. That's more expensive. I went from 24 to 80 keys. Much better. You don't have to look down. Oh, that's cool. Is there like little feelers on there? Like, kind of like home rows? You know, when you put your hands on the keyboard, do you have a home row? Or do you just know corner pocket, 2 buttons from the left, that's the volume mute? Do you have it memorized? I don't think I have the Stream Deck memorized. I think I can. Okay, I see you. These said, I created sections using special keys. So yes, now I have everything memorized and I can tell my feel which section I'm in. So when you say sections, do you mean that you've removed keys in between your sections? Almost like a grid? That would be cool. It would be cool because then you would know that this group of 4 or this group of 6, and because with this, these are all in one grid in 3x4, and then I have to feel out from the middle, so I have to look down. I mean, I suppose looking down isn't bad, but in the scheme of things, there's probably worse things to have to focus on. Although one thing I found, I'm complaining now, one thing I found with Restream is it can depend on the time of day what my output is. And I did a test earlier the last couple of days, and I tried. What I did was I did a 720p, 30 frames per second, 3.5 megabytes upload. And depending on the time of day, when I go check out Restream, it tells me I'm using 2200 megabytes upload, and sometimes the frames drop below 30 frames per second. And I thought that was kind of weird. And then other times it'll be a smooth 30 frames per second, but I can't figure out why. Because I'll look at my computer, and that's not, it's not at, the CPU vmix is only 8%. Right now I'm at 24% total, 25%, 22%, 21%. So my usage on vmix is low. And at first that was my first troubleshooting, was thinking I'm falling behind on my vmix bandwidth. I need to cut that down. So then I went through all my inputs and I started removing all the things that weren't necessary. And then I was like, man, what if it wasn't me? What if it's Restream? Well, I'm not lagging on Restream. I'm just saying, even with this service, I'm putting the hands of the stream in another service. I tried today's streams, I'm trying something different. I went into the input settings for the stream, and then I asked it to, I changed the setting, I upped it a bunch, and then I said, I selected Twitch as the up quality. I know it's not going, it's one of them is going to Twitch, but H.264 just like normal. But we were also going to try 720p, but 60 frames per second. But now that I think about that, I'm not actually recording in 60 frames per second. But I wanted to upload it 4.5 megabits per second. You can remove the keys and place them with dead keys. They are lower and won't push down. Oh, cool. So you're almost creating like a groove. That makes sense. Things would change on a shared service. You have to balance out your service with everyone else's. I remember Daryl Eves. He was doing his, what was it? He was doing his like live restream as he was walking around. And what was he doing? He was at Vid Summit, the 5-day stream thing, and he ended up going and his shared service cut out. I wonder if he was using Restream. Cool. I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but okay. FYI, I just sent you a pic of the X keys in Messenger. Okay, let's go look. Okay, I see. Your dead keys are almost like matte. I never noticed that they were lower though. You got a BRB, intro. I like the double button. Start stream. Where's your stop stream? Do you manually stop your stream or do you have a button for stopping? I think these are the things that we as streamers want to know. What's your take on the, I know David talks about this a lot, like what's your take on loading things to preview and then cutting it over to active, or do you just go straight to program? Are you a straight to program kind of person? I think for me it depends on what I'm doing. Oh wait, no, I see. You've got an end stream on the bottom right. Mic 1, mic 2. Prep bake. Side by side cam. Yeah, the double-sided keys are handy. The double side on the left starts and the one on the right stops. And you have room to grow. That's the best. I like that you got your NDI sources laid out, table 1, table 2. And is it a puppy cam? That's awesome. CTA. Like and follow. That's pretty awesome. Your mic buttons. Do you have your mic button set to press down to activate, press again to deactivate? Like to mute? Do you have a global mute button? This is set up so I can run my solo and co-host the shows from the same keys. Very ingenious. Because you're making it make sense to you first, and then filling it in all around it. The thing that really helps is being able to have each overlay its own button. No more misfires. See, right there, that puts you in full control without having to worry. But having 17 buttons, for me, on this little tiny thing, I only have 12. So I have to like make sacrifices. I suppose I could make folders. A folder for social, like a folder for comments, a folder for cameras. But then if I'm going down that route, I'd be compartmentalizing. And then 2, that's 2 button presses. I know I'm complaining. 2 button presses to pull off the same thing that would make it easier. The last thing I want to do is have to worry about pressing the button twice. Because if I have to go into a folder, I'm going to have to look. Which kind of defeats the purpose of doing the whole thing to begin with. Okay, so your mic's toggle. I'll probably add the activators to them at some point. The activators aren't really hard. They work very much like shortcuts. one thing I thought of, I originally thought that to have activators, I needed tally lights. And I had believed that tally lights and activators were the same thing. And then I saw this video about Bird Dog. I don't know. It's a company in Australia. And they make these NDI converters and cameras. And then there's this one thing. There's a Bird Dog Mini, and then there's a Bird Dog Pro. I don't know what it's called. And then the big one, the Pro, it has a tally light built into it, but it also does the NDI conversion. So you can plug like a SDI or HDMI source into it, and then it converts it into NDI. And then it shows up as an NDI source on your network, which I thought was amazing. But then they said it has a tally light built into it, but you can customize what the tally light says. It's not just a light, but it actually, it can tell you like camera's on, or it'll have words below it. And I was like, that's really neat. And then they talked more about what the tally light can do, because tally light is just a signal to you that this is active. And then their version of a tally light is not just a light, but you can program it to do things. And then I was like, but isn't that an activator? And then they wanted to talk more about activators, about how you can program it so that when the activator is on, you can have vMix do something different on this side, not just on their side. This just the source. I was like, what? This is crazy. There's a whole other world of live streaming that I'd never thought of or heard of. Okay, so that's especially handy with the co-host. She goes rogue on me all the time. Now I can bring up exactly what you're talking about. That's cool. Or what she's talking about. Yeah. Hi. How you doing? That sounds so cool. I know. Because I was looking at the cost of those. Oh yeah, I was telling you, the PTZ cameras, and the cost of those, even at the entry level, they're still like $800. And in Canadian, that's like an extra. You could add another $200, so you're probably looking at $1,000 just for the basic camera. That's for the box cam 20 times zoom, but it's the SDI version. And not that SDI isn't bad, but to future-proof getting the NDI would help. And then I started looking at, okay, well, what does NDI do? What does NDI mean? And how new is NDI compared to how reliable is SDI? Is there anything lost in the color or the video or the frame rates? And so far, I can't find anything harmful about NDI. But what I do find is that the price tag jumps by like an extra $500 to get NDI anything. NDI PTZ cam, NDI encoders, NDI. I think their game plan is like saving you from the hassle of getting a converter and saving you from the hassle of getting, because you have to decode it, send it through the wire, and then, or get an encoder to send it through the wire, which you can get with a fancy camera. But then you have to because I thought, well, I could get a Blackmagic SDI converter. Either the little box that plugs into my computer. And then that's when people were saying, if you send a big signal into your PC to decompress the signal, it takes more it takes more power on your processor, well, I guess with vMix it'll take longer or more graphics processor power. But then with NDI, I guess it's just the source, and it just sees the source. So my thoughts are, what if I got the NDI version of the camera so that it just shows up on the network? Then I don't have to worry about getting a Magewell converter or what's the other one? Blackmagic, that's the other one. There's a Blackmagic converter which can convert the signal to HDMI, and then there's a Magewell which converts it into USB, and then both of those you gotta get the cords for them, and some of these cords are pretty I think the Blackmagic SDI converter is like the size of a pretty small, like a pack of cards. But then you have to get a power cord. You have to get, unless you power over Ethernet, which is a whole other thing. It's exciting. There's so many different opportunities. Like you can grow in many different directions, and there's no immediate rush to do any of it. I think the great thing with David and Lurie is they've helped me appreciate how to walk through what I need. And I know what I wanted to do. And that's where I was like, well, I want to test some of this stuff out. And that's where the playing my World of Warcraft, I was going to do that just so I can see if I can get all this to run. Although sometimes yes, the more we learn, the more there is to learn. There is so much. You can't know everything. There's no way. Oh, where we go? Wired is always going to give you better and more reliable, but NDI is still pretty cool. I heard about that too. One thing I thought of was, because right now I'm streaming at 720p and I'm not really outputting 60 frames per second signal, but I'm having vMix output 60 frames per second. And I thought about what if I also did 720p but what if I did it as, like, rather than just worrying about, because I'm nowhere near the processing power to output 1080p, having a larger output requires more processing power. And currently, I don't think my computer can't handle more than one output stream, one upload. We tried that with Amy, I'm gonna say a year ago. I was trying to do Facebook and YouTube simulcast, and then I got up to over 60% total CPU usage, and I was dropping frames, and my audio was crapping out. Same PC, same layout, same vMix. So, and it wasn't my internet or anything. So I can only handle one output. If I were to jump from 720p to 1080, with my current setup, my current PC, I don't think I have the ability. I don't think my computer can handle it. And that's where I thought these wired encoders like Blackmagic and Magewell, they just convert the signal from one chord to another chord, changing it from an SDI cord to an HDMI cord, or an SDI cord into a USB cord. And the signals are still received, but it doesn't downscale or upscale. And so I looked at what could do the scaling for me if I were to do it. And there's something David and Larry mentioned. It's called a web presenter. The Blackmagic web presenter. It can receive both HDMI and SDI, and it takes whatever signal you have and converts it into 720p, but it also changes it so that your PC views that input as a USB source, as a camera. And I was like, well, that'd be pretty neat. That would offload the hardware encoder into a box, and it would also downscale. So if I did get a nicer camera, I could downscale it into 720p so that my low-end computer can output the 720p signal. As I talk more about it, I'm like, I should just get a larger, nicer computer to be able to handle this. As the list of needs and wants grows, so too does the tech sheet, the Christmas list. I know we're not even in Christmas, but I start looking at it. I'm like, well, what would I need next? What is it that's nice to have? Because right now I'm using a USB microphone. Anything that's USB, and I'm using a USB webcam. And the USB webcam I was looking up, like, each computer has a maximum amount of output for USB power. And so I'm using a USB microphone, USB webcam. I have two of them, the C920s. And then if I'm running both of them, I'm putting that pressure on my PC. So it's almost like Survivor. We're a Survivor Island where I'm, okay, what do I need? I don't need two C920s. What was I hoping to achieve with two C920s? Do I need two C920s? Does the impact land with my audience using a single C920, or does two cut it? Can I get away with one? I could probably do more with one and using that same bandwidth for other things. I think the audio comes in nice. I don't have a pop filter on this one though. I don't think I need one. Although there's these YouTube channels I started paying attention to about audio, and I've learned a lot. The differences between a cardioid and a condenser mic. The benefits of having like balanced audio versus just single stereo. They talk a lot about doing a lot of work in post. But if I remove that talk of post, I only need it for what I'm doing right now. I don't really have a focus on editing things in post. So the USB mic I'm using is it's a condenser microphone, and it's a blue one. It's a blue raspberry, and then what it does, I'll show you. So it's a blue raspberry, and then what it does is the condenser, there's a compressor, and it takes the quiet noise and brings it louder, and then takes the loud noise and brings it quieter. And then so when I get close to it, it makes me sound pretty awesome. But then it also picks up other things around it. Like, I don't know if you can hear the fan that's running. I mean, I can hear it audibly, but the fan goes in and it gets lifted by the microphone. So if I'm doing the stream and I'm turning on the fan, with the fan from the PC and the fan that I have running air to it, like I have another one of those little mini fans you plug in. I have a couple plugged right up next to the vents, and it's pushing air in and pulling air out. And those fans make noise. And so when they're making noise, my PC's making noise. With a condenser mic, it can lift that volume so you can hear it. And I found it even more audible on, like, I'm on the main floor, on the higher level. And then we have, on the third floor, we have washer and dryer. And the washer's on the left and the dryer's on the right. And the dryer's on the right, I'm right next to that dryer. So if we're doing laundry and the dryer's going, the microphone can pick that up. The condenser microphone boosts that noise. And I can lower the ceiling, like lower the noise gate. But then I find that when I'm using the noise gate, it's almost too aggressive in that maybe it's because I talk so low. I don't talk that loud, that it's lifting the voice, my voice, and then lifting all those background noise at the same time. There's other kinds of microphones that zone in only on what you've pointed it at. But then there's other drawbacks to those as well. But still, the world of the video side is just as deep as the world of the audio side. As much as I would like to solve the audio first, I think the video will be the next challenge. Okay, you stream to Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope while making a local recording. That's awesome. The local recording, do you do it in a higher quality? Like, do you stream in 720 but record in 1080? Or do you just do everything 1080? Are you that like boss mode where you're like, I don't care? Okay, yeah, it sounds like a more powerful computer is a good place to start. So your studio setup, you've got 3 webcams. The C920s. You're happy with the Blue Yeti. The Blue Yeti, that's the one where I think the Blue Yeti has an XLR input and a USB input. I look back now and I'm like, the XLR for me, because you can see on the Blue Yeti you have a choice, I think, for omnidirectional, bidirectional, and then condenser or condenser. And on this Blue Raspberry I don't have any settings. I just have 2 dials, one for gain and one for volume, and the volume is for feedback when I plug a microphone in on the back. But aside from that, I don't have any other settings. Okay, with the Yeti, you can change the settings to only focus on the sounds coming from in front and ignore the rest. Yes, see, that's what I wish I had gotten. I think back now, I'm not upset or angry or frustrated. I just look back and I'm like, man, I wish I made these purchases after meeting David and Larry. Or I wish I made more purchases after meeting David and Larry. You can also filter some noise from vMix. Yes, I tried playing with some of the settings in vMix. I've watched the videos, like the workshops. And there's a lot of workshops. There's a lot of benefits in those workshops, which is huge. I don't do anything with the master settings. I do all my playing in the audio input settings. Okay, you stream in 720 and 1080 and record a local backup. So Facebook 720, YouTube 1080, and a 1080 as backup. That's cool. That's actually really cool. I was reading on the forums, I think it was the vMix forums, like there's ways you can stream the same show, but you can have different things. And I was like, what? Oh, you can have local recordings of everything, like each input. You need a lot of space to be able to do this. But then you could still stream the program out and still have all your local recordings. And then from there, you can still upload a different recording later to something else. And I was like, that's insane. I've never even thought of that before. And the benefits they shared is like, imagine you were hosting an event. Kind of like what Petra does is Petra will go into an event. What if you have one thing that's on site and you show people one thing? Like you might show some on a projector your preview, but then you might be streaming your program and you might be recording everything individually. And I didn't know vMix had that ability, or why would you need to do that? But I was like, oh wow, vMix is really, really powerful to give you that option. Okay, you have 3 Logitech webcams, C920, C922, and the Brio. Oh, see, that's smart. Because when I run 2 C922s, the software is from like the firmware update is from like 2011, and there's been no update since. But the settings for the autofocus, like I'll turn that off, and I'll turn off the auto white balancing, and the settings will forget, and it will turn it back on randomly. I don't know if it's because I have 2 C920s, but I won't notice it until I'm watching myself. I might be on a screen and doing something, and then I'll see the camera phase in and phase out. That's when I know to go check the settings and then turn it off again, even though I've already set it to turn off. But I don't know if it's because I've got 2 of the same camera that happens. I've thought about the Brio, because the Brio looks really nice. Someone else has a Brio too. Donna Mavramades, she's got a Brio. I've rewatched most of the lessons. I learned so much more each time because I understand more. Yes. There was a spot where I really enjoyed the Phillips tutorials. You know, he hasn't done that many, but he would do these walkthroughs And those I found were amazing. Because it wasn't in the lesson for me that really stuck with me. It was in his logic and his passive conversation. Like, he would just say things like, okay, I'm going to go do this thing. I'm going to turn this on. Because the reason why you want to do that is because 13 steps from now, that's going to save you 3 clicks. And then I would stop him like, wait, what did he just say? Hold on. And then just hearing him rational that out, it would make me think. I'd be like, holy cow, actually, he's right. That can save me 3 clicks 13 steps from now. I would go back and watch them. I see, yeah, there's a lot of value in rewatching some of the lessons, which I think are pretty cool. And I'm glad that they're available to watch. One thing I didn't do was going to sound bad. When they switched from platform to platform, we had to re-enroll in the group coaching. And then when I did the group coaching the first time, we got those like friends and family discounts. Like, we'd been with them for a year by then, I think, the first time we signed up to group coaching. And then when they converted to the second one, I tried to use the same group coaching code and it didn't work. And then I was like, well, at $99 a month, and it's US, so in Canadian, you know, it's an extra $35 or $33. So it'd be like $130 a month. Whereas before it was savings. I think it was like $50 or $60. I can't remember. And so when I added that up, I was like, I don't know if I want to re-sign up at a full price. It sounds like I'm complaining, but when I didn't sign up to the new group coaching, I was like, well, at least I'll still have access to all of the group coachings I had up to that point. No, you don't. You lose everything. I have the basic core trainings, and that's it. I don't have anything else. I don't have any of the discussions. I don't have... Like, I had the launches I signed up for, but none of the other cool trainings. And I look back and I'm like, you know, I probably got more out of those trainings in those banters. Like in the... It wasn't like David just setting up the audio. It was David discussing the audio, or David setting up the lighting, the benefits of using the 3-point, the hair light. Those kinds of things I thought were really cool. But I don't feel bad. I just miss a lot of the social component, I guess. I never made it to the group calls because I work so much. And then when I came to rewatching the group coaching calls, I mean, the group coaching calls I thought were nice, but it was those bonus trainings. Holy crap, those bonus trainings. That's what I missed the most. The social training, the social aspect of the people discussing things, I thought were cool. Yes, I think that might be the older cameras. I have an older one in the comfy chair where I do Twitch streams. Yeah. Your Twitch streams are pretty cool, relaxed and chill. It's like you just hanging out. And what I like most about your setup on the couch is it's just so casual. It's like you're hanging out and you're having fun and you got your own audience. And I think that's pretty cool. I think you've worked hard for it. You've put in the effort. Hold on, I notice it's getting really dark now. There we go. We got some lights. It's not a 3-point hair lighting, it's just the bedroom lighting. The lights I have are like the show lights I use. They're like these massive light bulbs. They're like almost like a tube. The bulbs themselves are like this, but longer, and they're coiled. They put out so much heat. I think I bought them. There's this Canadian lighting company. I think they're called like Canadian Lights or something. They're on Amazon. It was a set of 2 for like $130. It wasn't bad. They're great for starter lights, and some of them are really, really bright. So what I've gotten to do is I've started. I would have them not, what do you call it, ricochet, where you bounce the lights off. I'm in a small, like 12 by 12 room. So facing the lights right at me gives off a lot of heat. I can appreciate actors on stage or in the theater when they've got those lights staring down at you. But in a small room, having 2 of those lights come at you, I was like, oh man. Because before, my very first show was in the, was in the basement. In the basement, I had a lot of room. I put the lights on the far back, on the opposite side of the basement, and I would still have lots of light. But when I moved things up into my room, I suddenly didn't have the large enough space, but I still wanted the lights. And if I block out the sun during the day and turn the lights on in a small room, it becomes a lot hotter. I think you had LEDs, the square ones, because those don't give off that much heat at all, but they still give out the brightness. But that'll be another project for a different day. Lights. Okay. Not at all. You can reach out to them. They might hook you up. Yeah, Dave and Larry are pretty cool. I'm sure they would. Those lights look great. That's awesome. This is cool. Thanks for hanging out, Kathleen. It's actually really fun. I was telling my mom, I went home to visit my family a couple weeks ago. Something came up and I had to go, and it was sort of a last minute thing, and I got to see some of my family, and it was really nice to catch up with them. And I was telling my mom, she's like, so what are you doing? What are you working on? Because she always knows I'm working on something. And I was like, well, and I tried explaining to her, I was like, oh yeah, me and my friends, we each do our own like little live shows, and my mom's watched some of my shows, and she's like, oh, that's really neat. And she's like, so do your friends come over and like hold the camera or hold the lights and hold the microphone? I'm like, well, no, Mom. We watch each other's shows like remotely. I'll watch Kathleen's show after work. I'll watch, because I think the show you produce ends like midway through my shift at work. So I don't always get there during the beginning. I might catch the middle of it, but it's exciting. So I'm like, oh, Kathleen's on. Well, it's not really you that's on, but I know you're running it. So I tried explaining to my mom. I was like, oh, Mom, we watch each other's shows. And my mom, up to that point, thought we were going over to each other's houses to then produce the show. And I'm like, well, no. I mean, I can see how that makes it from the story I tell, from the way I talk. I'm like, oh yeah, and Kathleen's show, she's so cool. She does 2 different shows. She does one, and then she does another one. And Petra does her own thing. And so when I talk about my online friends, that my mom had thought that we were actually like neighborhood friends. I was like, well, no. Although I talk about you like I'm talking right now, I feel like I'm chatting with you and I know you're there. But I think that's the kind of, not the kind of world we're in, but I think that's how we're bridging this with what we have. Being able to reach and connect with others, and we do it at such a level that becomes so commonplace that we have our own Petras, we have our own, David and Maria's, Jason and Kathleen's. I think that's cool. Yeah, I have a lot of fun with it. Yes, I use LEDs. The room is too small for the heat from the other lights. Seriously, you should ask David and Luria to help with the pricing for the group coaching. I think part of the problem I had was when I originally signed up to the group coaching the very, very, very first time. I think I signed up right away on day one. And then when we had to do the conversion, we stopped and asked. We were asked to cancel our subscription from one service on the last day of the month, of our month, and then sign up to the new program for the first day of the new month. And it made total sense because then you'd avoid double charging yourselves. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. But I forgot to cancel my payment. And when I didn't cancel my payment, it just auto-renewed on the old program that wasn't active anymore. And then so I messaged David and Larry. I was like, so I forgot to cancel, but are you okay if I just do it the next month? And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever, don't worry. And then I was receiving emails for a while. And then they converted over to the new system. But then I'm still on the email list, not the email list, the Facebook list. So I get notifications when they go, the group coaching's going live, click this button to join. And then every time I click on it, it tells me like, you don't have access. And then I'm like, okay, then why do you send me notifications to join? And then I was like, oh, that's right. Because according to them, they still think I'm in the program. I mean, I'm sure they know I'm not, but that's where I was like, I think it was that extra month because then I canceled. Then I did remember to cancel. I went out of my way to make sure I canceled. And then when I went to go sign up on the new program, by then I guess everything had been locked down. And then there was like new people signing up to the program. And then I was like, okay, well, I think I have a code in here somewhere. And I went to go look it up and I was like, I tried to copy and paste it and it's like, the code you're using doesn't work. I'm like, all right. I think it was like 11 o'clock on a Sunday. I really wasn't up in the mood to debate or to troubleshoot. So I just left it. And then that was then a month went by and then 2 months went by. And then after that, then I just never went out of my way to go and correct it. But then I've put a lot of work into like troubleshooting other stuff and figuring it out. Okay, you're having fun too. Thanks. Yay. Yeah, I get that. It was a bit of an adjustment the way my dad found my show. Not bad, but just, okay, Dad's watching. I had that when I think it was an ex found my show. And then, not that it wasn't bad, but it was like when my ex's friends started watching my show. That I thought was kind of weird. But there was no harm, no foul. Could have been worse, but still, there was that weird moment. I'm like, right. Okay, let's keep going. But yeah, totally understand where you're coming from when you say how your loved ones find out you have a show. I had this. Oh, where'd the music go? I'm using this Epidemic Sound. I signed up for this Tube Buddy, and then in Tube Buddy there was a sign up thing for Epidemic Sound, and it's really fun. There's like a lot of great music. I don't know any of the artists, but the music I think is pretty cool. Like you can just type in moods, or you can type in genres, or you're like YouTube. There's a YouTube category. Here, what's this? There we go. So then this, it actually looks pretty cool. Well, Epidemic Sound sounds pretty cool. But then, what was I talking about? People finding her show. We're talking about exes, family, loved ones, your dad. How they find out about the show is almost as much fun as like people who enjoy the show watching it, right? I think that's what we're talking about. There are some problems when they move stuff over, but if you ask them, they'll get it figured out. The problem they have to do something. I'm not looking forward to any of my exes finding the shows. Hopefully never. Your ex is for a reason. Winky face. Yes. That's the music service David uses too. Yeah. One thing I thought of doing. Does vMix have an audio input? Because what Epidemic Sound lets you do, let me show you. Epidemic Sound lets you do is, let's go back. Here's a category. YouTube vlogging. Let's say I like this one a lot. You can download the track, or you can download something called stems. And then with stems it's the individual pieces of the song. Like you can just remove the singing. Or if you wanted to have just the drums. And I was like, that's crazy. So what I'm thinking we do is I take the MP3s right from here, Epidemic Sound. I wonder if I can load them into vMix as like a playlist and then just have it cycle through the list. Like, I don't need an hour's worth of songs. But I'll bet you I could get it to... Because what I don't want to do is, what if I have another browser source feeding me? Because what I'm doing is right now is I'm using... One thing I found challenging... I asked Petra for help and she walked me through it. But for her gaming, she uses, what's that software that she uses? Before vMix, she used something else. And I think It's like Mevo. I can't remember. But what she did is when she plays her games, she down, because her gaming comes out at a higher frame rate, and it goes like the gaming's at more than 1080p. It's like 60 frames per second. And so if I play a video game, vMix doesn't read it, and I have a hard time converting it, because again, I don't have a converter to convert the signal from 60 frames per second down to 30. So what I do instead is use it as an NDI source. So when I pull in an NDI source, I'm just pulling in the screen, nothing crazy, nothing magical. But then I also have another NDI source where I pull in the screen capture. vMix has a screen capture. And so I'm pulling in the screen capture as an NDI source 1, and then I'm pulling in the screen capture, but just pulling in the audio. So what I've been getting away with so far is playing the audio like in here, like this, through Epidemic Sound. And it's DRM free, so I never have to worry about getting copyright strikes. I did one stream with Spotify, and that stream got taken down quick. So now I use this Epidemic Sound, and I don't have to worry about it. But when I try, so here's my desktop capture NDI source, but in vMix, if I try and add the source as an NDI source, I bring it in, and then when I bring it in, here's what it looks like. It comes out as black. So that's why I asked Petra about it. I was like, how do you do that? She mentioned, well, it's because of the downscaling. It's not the same frame rate or not the same ratio. That's where I was like, crap. Okay. So then I got to find a way to do that. I wasn't going to buy another software to do it. But that's where, what if I were to use an NDI source instead? I'm sure the NDI source isn't bad, but kind of like you said, it's not the same as hardwire. Hardwire is always more reliable. Oh, that's cool. I think you can. Yeah. I'm sure there's a way, and I'm probably doing it the most clunky, difficult way there could be. Another thing I thought of, because it's crazy what YouTube learns about us. So as I was doing searches, YouTube eventually started suggesting to me like how to do like streaming for beginners. And I was like, well, I don't really consider myself a beginner, but I'll watch your video. And there were some people who do not dual graphics cards, but they'll use like 2 PCs. And I even saw one guy, he ran 3 PCs to do his streams. And the way they split the load Mind you, they're doing it with OBS. So it's all processor based is what they're doing. And so what they could do, I'll explain what they're doing on paper first. Like they're running their game on one computer and they're playing that game, and that's all it's doing is just playing the game. On a second computer, the second computer is only streaming, and that's all it's doing is just sending the signal. That's it. And then the third computer was running the audio, and by running audio, like they used a fancy switcher. Like they were using like a big, kind of like your X keys, but it was like bigger than that. And then the what am I listening to? Where they were running the multiple, just because they wanted to split the workload. And I was like, well, that makes sense. But that's also like a huge, huge investment to pull off. I don't think I need 3 computers. Although having a second one, or even just a better current one, might be a good starting point. Because the one I'm using now, it's below the vMix recommended guide. The vMix recommended guide, I think, is like the 1080. vMix reference systems, vMix reference systems, supported hardware. Okay, so vMix hardware system. So we've got Ruby. It says 1080p. It can handle 4 NDI sources. Four NDI sources at 1080p. Can I configure what the NDI sources are? Like am I able to capture it? What I'm thinking of is what if I live, breathe, and do everything in 720? Like just until I can get a better setup? Does me NDI local capture? There's a NDI source. Okay, 2 connections, settings, loop back, show cursor, minimize at startup, loop back audio. No, there's no way for me to configure it beyond that. That would be cool if I could ask it to have capture it in 720, send in 720, receive in 720, upload the stream in 720. If it could do all of that, that would be better. But I'm not running at 1080p. I'm not running 1080p. I'm not running 1080p at all. I'm actually running a 960. NVIDIA 960. It doesn't have... It is an i7, but it's not at 8700. It's like a 6700, I think. Actually, let me check CC Cleaner. CC Cleaner. Okay. CC Cleaner says I'm running a i7 6700 CPU, 3.4 gigahertz, 16 gigs of RAM with an Intel graphics. I have the 960 for NVIDIA. That's where I'm playing Survivor mode with my processing power. If I were to get a decent computer, starting with the 1080p, that's the streaming capability. Where's NVIDIA 1060 Emerald HD. Okay, this one's kind of a lower model, I guess. 4-camera streaming. 1050 Ti. Magewell Pro Capture Quad HDMI and or Magewell. That's a $400 item right there. The Decklink Duo. Yeah, that's what I was looking at. i5. Nobody wants an i5. A Sapphire laptop. What if I get a laptop instead? 720, 8 megabits per second, 2 NDI sources up to 1080, 1080p, 25 megabytes per second. So GTX 1070 is what they're recommending. Acer Predator. And AGA IO 4K. I don't know. Okay. I'll share this, not sure if it will help or not. I was struggling with bringing in video and audio for the audience. Running NDI and bringing in the games and their sound into vMix, even though everything is on the same computer. Okay. Because right now, I'm running the NDI source with the audio, and it's bringing in the audio of my game, and it's bringing in audio for the Epidemic sound. It's kind of a patchwork solution, but it works. It does what I needed to do. Although, when I'm playing the game, actually, what if it's the game? What if it's the game? What if I've got that? Can I turn down the settings? Is there a settings function? Can I turn it down? Because then I start to notice some choppiness. Okay, let's go menu, system. I got full screen, resolution. Can I turn down the settings? Graphics quality 1. Recommended is at 4. It's already pretty low. Advanced. Monitor primary, full screen. Resolution. Changes the resolution for rendering the world. I don't know, I've got the settings down pretty low already. An Acer Predator. Acer laptops in Canada. $1070, 8 gigabytes. Wouldn't the fans on that thing be really loud? I don't know. Would a laptop help? Mind you, it would be great for mobile. How many USB ports? Two USB, microphone and headphone. Use an Alienware R17. Alienware. R17. Okay, that's a Dell computer. Okay, this one has an i9. It's the same price as the other one, but it gives you an i9. That's got a 1080, not a 1070. This one's better. Gaming laptop. So it's $2,400, which is the same price as the other one. Select your game to see frames per second. So it looks like they have i9. So they start at 24 and they go up to 35. 24 gets you 8 gigs of RAM, but for $200 more you can get 16. If you jump up to $600 more, you still get 16 gigs of RAM. Oh, actually no, the 24 only gives you an i7. An i7's not bad, but for the 200 you get, if you make the jump to 3200, you get the i9 with the 16 gigs with the 1070. Ah, that's where it is. The 1070 is in the 3200, but as soon as you jump to 3600, okay, now we're living in crazy world, but if we did 3600, get the i9, 32 gigs of RAM, GeForce 1080, so That's not bad. 256 SSD with 1 terabyte. What's this? Okay, video card. Kathleen, do you have the 16 gigabytes of RAM or do you have the 32? Did you go crazy and get the 32? Type-C Thunderbolt, USB 3, HDMI 2, mini DisplayPort, audio in, audio out, speakers, lighting. There's lighting. Oh, you have zones. Okay, that's cool. RGB. Wow. You maxed it out. You got a great deal. That's sweet. If I were to max it out, what did we say? If we max it out, it's $3,500. $3,600. That's before tax. Tax in Canada is crazy. Included in the price. What are the add-ons on this? Oh, okay, so the $3,600 is after a $900 savings. Oh, God. Microsoft Office. Okay, the add-ons are crazy. M.2. Bluetooth 5 for $30. Okay, that's a good deal. I don't know. Such a little computer. This thing can do so much. Okay, with my $30 add-on, it's now up to $3,600 and $29.99. Alright, this one's got an Ethernet port. Let's see. Wow, that's an impressive. Check your score. With a 3D Mark Time Spy score. What's a Time Spy score? With a Time Spy score, this system is kicking to high gear, which means you can play all the popular games. There's a 4th level. How do you get to the 4th level? I'm shopping. Oh, is that the game's amplifier? Does that kick me to the 4th level? No, I'm not. 4th level. What brings it to the 4th level then? It's 120 hertz, 400 nits. There's not much more you can add on to it. Maybe Windows Pro? Windows Pro and a hard drive. Okay, it's gotta push me level 4. I'm still not on level 4. see. I'm just trying something here. Where'd it go? Let's go. Click to test. And circles. It's downloading. Let's go to show my folder. There we go. Okay. So then, if I try this, now let's go to vMix, input, audio, browse, I can only add files one at a time. More. Audio. Browse. did the audio go? Okay, if I add it to vMix, it does not play the audio. Okay, let's try something else. Let's try. Hi. What are you doing? If I drag and drop it on. vMix is pulling it as an NDI source. Okay, so I think I have to add in each individual song. I think I can do it. Then I couldn't add a playlist. got some more work to kind of figure out. But a lot of progress has been made today. This is really exciting. I'm getting kind of hungry, so I'm going to stop here. I'm going to go get some food. But I want to say thank you, Kathleen. Thank you for hanging out. It really means a lot. Thanks for the advice and just listening. It's amazing how much we can get done, even just by listening to each other, talking it out. But thanks again. I really appreciate it. I hope you have fun and you enjoy the rest of your night. It's getting kind of late. I might come back later to see how well I'm, depending on what I found for food. But thanks again for hanging out. It really means a lot. But you take care. Bye, Kathleen.